now. So we should start now. Okay.
Okay.
So welcome everyone. Yeah, we are glad to see many of our friends like me not only enjoy Qin music, but are also curious about Qin making and silk string making. Perhaps some of you have already made some Qin. I haven't, but I hope one day I will try to make one myself. So in our program today, we have 3 of our members who will share their Qin making experience. Each of them is unique: an electric Qin, a carbon fiber Qin, and a traditional Qin. We also have a special guest, Lawrence, who will talk and answer questions about silk string making. Besides, we also have 2 Qin music performances by a special guest, Charles from London Yolan Qin Society, and Yuki from Denver, Colorado, who is going to perform the Qin for the first time in her life. Now, let me stop the sharing and then let's welcome them. And first is Yuki Qin playing of Liang Xiao Yin. Following her is Mr. Stephen Dydo's talk about his electric Qin making. Welcome, Yuki.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't know how my sliding's gonna be. I'm kind of nervous, so my hands are kind of sweaty, so we will see how this goes.
done
Yuki,
with it.
that was really nice.
My hand.
Yeah. Okay, great. So now, because Stephen Dydo has some project going on, so we move his talk to the second one after Yuki. So Stephen.
Okay, you won't see me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I have a short video I'm going to show you, and if I can have permission to share the screen, that would be great. Okay. This is just a little introduction to the kind of tools that you use when you are using when you're building chins or instruments generally. And we're starting out with a view from my barn, but I'm going to start the video and I'll just narrate through it. So yeah, this is the barn on the other side of my house, and you know, as you can see, it's surrounded by fields and woods. And then to the left of the barn is a storage area where we store wood and trailers and things like that. So it's a set up like a farm. But for me, the real jewel of this whole setup is the shop with the right white paint. You can see it was once a garage, and as we go in, you can see the first thing you see as you go in on the right is what's called a radial arm saw, which can cut all kinds of different cuts. The saw is actually mounted on a sliding thing, so the saw can go back and forth. And underneath is a collection, kind of vacuum cleaner that just sucks up all the dust as you're working, so you don't have to suffer the breathing and all the particulate stuff. And continuing on from there to the left, we can see this is just a standard table saw for cutting up. Typically, I would use it for cutting the boards that I'm going to make a chin out of. And then here's, oh my God, the camera work is terrible. The cameraman must have been drunk. Oh, that was me. Never mind. Anyhow, this is the large drill press, which can drill very long holes up to, you know, you can. Oh, here's another small radial arm saw. So that's the big drill press and a small radial arm saw. Moving over, this wooden chest contains all the chisels, scrapers, all the fine hand tools that I have. And they're all small, and they all fit into different compartments, but it's great to keep them separate from all the power tools. Then for working in the winter, this is a wood stove, fairly rustic. Then moving on, we can see the workbench where the main action happens. This is the woodworking bench. I actually have 3 wood workbenches here in this shop, but this is where all the fun happens in the woodworking. And you can see it's got holes for holding, basically use the holes there for putting in clamps to hold the work. And behind you can see some works in progress. I'll look at these in a little more detail at the end of the video, but as you can see, there are 3 chins in the works, 4 chins in the works. The ones on the left are traditional chins, then the 2 on the right are very roughed out electric chins. They're just solid boards. And then this is where a lot of the sanding gets done. So you have this, you can have a disc sanding or a belt sanding, and just all the tools are right in front of me. It's so handy to work. By the way, I just have to tell you, this is so much better than the work situation that I had for many years. Here's the small drill press, which actually I use more than the big drill press. Moving on, here is the, this is called a bandsaw, and it's as you can see, it's got a very small blade that you can feed work into, so you can cut all kinds of intricate patterns. And here's what's called a planer joiner, and what I use it for is thicknessing wood. You know, you feed the wood in there, and then before you do that, you adjust the height of the cutter for the thickness of the wood. And over to the right, this is another part of the barn, a small building attached to the barn, and inside is where all the wood is stored. On the top of you can see it's got to be stored. Mostly it has either on top of woods on top of each other, or it's got little pieces of wood to give them air. And on the very top, you see this is cypress wood that Zhongping gave me. He was going to make a chin out of it, and I don't know if it would make a good chin or not. It's really good for making flamenco guitars, but I don't do that. So we'll see. It's a beautiful yellow wood. And underneath that, you start seeing different pieces of thin wood, and these are going to be all for the bottoms of the chin. They include cedar and catalpa, and there's even some hardwood there. And then below that is more thicker wood, and the thicker wood consists mostly of paulownia, although there are some pieces of pine as well. And so it's just, these are all the things that haven't been started yet. Someday, and it's always good to collect the wood. And over to the left, we can see these are little pieces. They don't seem like much, but these are all rosewoods and ebonies and things like that that are used for all kinds of the small parts of the chin. And here's this is the first traditional chin. It's made from a piece of pine I got from an old pine table I saw lying on the street, and it was very old, and I just cut it up. And then the bottom part is made from a piece of cedar. Cancel poplar. This one is made from a piece of paulownia, as you can see on the bottom. It's catalpa. By the way, both of these are cut in a tongue dynasty pattern, somewhat modified, but basically I was able to pick one up. These slabs of wood are. I wonder who's crashing around in there. Anyhow, I'm going to show you four pieces. These are the electric chins in the making. I'm showing you the top and the bottom, and notice that I've got two holes for the goose feet here, but they're round. They shouldn't be round, but they won't be. I just make them round so that then I can square them up with a chisel before I put in the square goose feet. So that is the end of my video, and I'll show you some of the work.
Stephen, is that video has Qin music background?
That's one of my electric chins, actually.
Oh, okay. So it's your video.
Yeah.
From your video, it's not. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just thought I'd have some pleasant music to listen to while we were taking the tour of the shop.
You mean you were playing Mei Hua San Nung on the track?
Yeah.
It's very distracting.
Like that.
It's hard for us. No, it was hard for us to understand you when there's music on at the same time. So I thought someone had turned their mic on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I probably should have moved the mic over, but then that would just add another 5 minutes of moving around. If there was something that was unclear, probably some of the stuff that was unclear actually was also unclear because you probably were unfamiliar with the tools I was talking about and the procedures. But
some of us watch the woodworking programs, so we know about these saws and teeth.
Good.
Thank you.
Jim has question. Can you open on your mic? Can you turn on your mic?
Yeah, I've been muting people, so you might have to unmute.
Yeah, I did. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Steve, what do you think of pine as a wood for the top of your chin?
I'm sorry, say that again.
pine. What do you think of it?
Oh, pine.
Acoustically.
Well, it's used in guitars, of course, and in violins, and lots of other instruments. And that one I've showed you is my first piece of pine, but I have a lovely chin made out of pine.
Really? And do you like the sound? Do you play the chin?
Well, again, I haven't actually completed myself one made out of pine. Let me just check something here. Okay, I'm going to change microphone. And hopefully you'll be able to hear me a little bit better now. Yeah, the pine it's great for, it's in principle it's great. However, when you're thinking about pine, you have to realize that there's a lot of different types of pine. For instance, yellow pine is often used for flooring. That means it's extremely hard. Whereas the piece of pine that I made, the pine top chin, is quite soft. When I actually saw this thrown out table on the street, it was like this thick. It was like 2.5 inches thick, and a little bit bigger than a chin in length, and about 1.5 feet wide. And it weighed, about 4 pounds. Very light. And so that in that respect, it was interesting for me because it had about the same density as Paulownia, but of course, Paulownia is got a totally different grain structure. And also, I put in poplar for the bottom because, again, it's a totally different grain structure. It probably the sound, I'm guessing, when I knock on it, it's very resonant. It's kind of bell-like. So it's the question is, when I get it completed, will it have the depth of sound that we look for in a chin? That I don't know, and I'll be very curious when I get those two acoustic chins built to find out what is the difference between the woods I just described and the traditional woods, that is the Paulownia and Catalpa, which I'm building the other chin out of, because those are traditional, but I'm not convinced they'll be they won't be as bright. They might have the resonance, and who knows a lot about this these woods is Jim Binkley. So hopefully he'll be able to talk a bit more about that.
Well, I have one more question, if I may. So you were talking about cypress. You had some cypress.
Yes.
How does it rap? When you tap it, does it sound good?
Well, these are very big pieces. It's got a sound to it.
Big knuckles. I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I'm curious about it because it definitely has a ring to it.
Okay.
For instance, when I knock on that, and then I knock on a piece of Paulownia of similar size, I get more of a ring out of the cypress.
So for what it's worth, I asked Zhucheng way back there in London about other woods one might use, just to see what he would say. He said cypress.
Oh, no kidding.
Possibility. So,
well, somebody must have told Yuan Zhongping about cypress because he ordered 2 very expensive pieces, and then he never really had the facilities to make the chin from them. So that's how I inherited those 2 lovely pieces.
Well, thanks for that. I like seeing the shop.
Good. So now I can, I'll play a couple of examples of different types of sounds you can get. Let's see, this is basically, oh yeah, and also, before I get into that, this is, I have 2 electric chin here right now. This one, it's rather narrow, very portable. It's actually, I made this one out of a piece of maple, that was on a kitchen counter in a house.
Lacquer?
The lacquer?
Did
It's
you paint?
This is actually. I wish I could get this some more. Yeah, this is the. It's not traditional lacquer, and it's. Yeah, it's Jim and I have both been using it for years. Jim turned me onto it, I think, but it's illegal to import it from Japan, where we were getting it now, and it's used in, for instance, people use it in sword making, for instance, making the swords and things like that. So it's very tough if you can make a sword handle out of it, and we found it's really good for making for finishing chins, and it doesn't cause allergenic reactions. Unfortunately, not only can we not get that, the one thing that we can get that's traditional is the traditional urushiol based finish, which it's like basically rubbing poison ivy juice on the chin. Once it's dried, it's not a problem. But if you're allergic to it, it's pretty tough. And I still haven't steeled myself to use that.
Do you rub crab meat on yourself when you do that?
Crab meat?
Oh, it's a traditional antidote. If you can't find lotus leaves and boil some water, wash your hands with. The other thing that the Medicina Practica suggests is rubbing crab meat on yourself.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's good. The thing that makes me nervous is, of course, when you're working on it, you're spreading it all over, and then, of course, you're sanding it. You're going to be breathing it. Even with a good mask, I would be a little nervous about it. So I'm trying to avoid that if I possibly can, but we'll see what happens, because so far we haven't found my guru for all this stuff is Jim, but haven't found the substitute. This is a great finish, though.
Can you give us the Latin name of the lacquer that you say does not cause a reaction?
Oh, I can give you the English name.
Whatever it is, whatever.
It's cashew. Cashew.
It's a cashew lacquer.
Yeah, it's making cashew.
And the thing they told me when I was in Taiwan is that the clear stuff is actually more or less the same as the normal one, except they filtered out a lot of things, so it's clear, and it's a lot more expensive because of that. But in terms of the quality, the physical molecules, I guess it's the same. And also, I noticed the teacher, he uses his bare hand to put on the lacquer often, and that's because he thinks it's more sensitive for his own hands to do that. But I noticed he really, after half an hour, he quickly washed his hands with turpentine. Really, the limit is 30 minutes. And he really, really rushed to do that. And after so many years, it's his sensitivity to the, what do you call this? The allergic timing for him is kind of like, he gets less allergic to it than before, but still, like within half an hour, he really rushed to get rid of it. And I myself, I didn't know that the first time I did that, the first time I made the chin, and I thought, this material is quite interesting. But actually, it's a very, very fine polymer. And I had it all over my hand, and I couldn't wash it off. It's like a very, very fine rubber glove all over your hand. And the thing is, I have really had an allergic reaction because my hands were sealed with this very fine polymer thing. And my face started to swell because of my hands were sealed. So actually we have to be very careful, and we must wash it off when it's still wet.
That makes sense.
We have a lot of horror stories about lacquer, but if you don't mind me digressing a little, Stephen, I believe that you've had the honor of meeting Zhaoze, or the Swamp, while they were touring in the US. I was wondering if there are any similarities and standards, as well as any differences between your electric chins versus those that are commercially available in China.
I haven't played one of the commercially available chins, so I don't know. I can tell you that that they're actually using, when you're electrifying a chin, there are a couple of different ways you can go about it. And I'll talk about that a little bit right now, which is you can, well, I'll show you with this other chin here, which I can take closer to the camera. There is, in this chin, you can see here are two pickups they're magnetic, so that they're only sensitive to steel strings. So therefore, if I were to put silk strings on this one, it would not produce any sound other than the sound of the strings vibrating against the wood. In other words, no electricity would be produced, because you need to have steel cord strings. Well, of course, the modern strings all have steel cores. On the other hand, you can, I'm trying to angle this. I don't know if you can see, there are some discs under in the yueshan itself, which are, those are pickups that are sensitive to vibration, so that they'll pick up the vibration, and then it gets transmitted. Both of those sets of signals get transmitted inside here. So now I'm just showing the guts of the thing, and it's a lot of wiring, and I know it's hard to see. That's the basic situation. So we have here we have a volume control on one side, and the other side is a control that varies the amount that's coming from the different pickups. So you can get different sounds, or for instance, if you happen to have strung your chin with silk strings, you would turn it all the way to the piezo, the vibration sensitive pickup, and you would be able to play from that. But I would think that most people would want to use metal strings for this anyhow, because the whole point of playing an electric chin, for me at least, would be to get a louder sound. And the louder sound just sounds goofy to me when you've got a beautiful silk string chin that's making this traditional sound, but then is going through this this pickup and amplifier situation, then coming through a loudspeaker. So all of those things totally alter the color of the sound, and make it really difficult to get a true chin sound. On top of that, there's the fact that the chin would be playing at a louder volume than was natural would also sound unnatural. So you would, I'm kind of not that interested in making a loud sounding traditional chin. That's why I got involved in doing this sort of thing. Now, I'm going to play through a couple of things. This is, I'll just play the beginning of Meihua. Just going straight from the pickups through into the amplifier. So, not too different from the sound of a metal string chin. Actually, it's, a lot of the color of that sound is from the strings themselves, which are totally traditional. It is coming through a pickup. Now I'll put on, I'm going to back off the volume a little bit here. And let's see. Now, a little bit like Purple Haze or something like that. So you get a lot of real, much more of an electric guitar type of sound.
What did you just do, Stephen, to change the what did you just do to make it sound?
I'm running it through it's a processor now to make it more electric guitar-like.
The processor.
Yeah. Well, actually, okay. I'm glad you asked because I'm kind of rushing through things. But let me see if I could. No, I can't really. Well, if you can, see, I'm going to bring the camera around a little bit.
I mean, something else is amplifying the sound, not just the picking up the.
Yeah, it's.
Okay. It's an additional amplification.
Well, it's actually coloring the sound a lot. So this is the sort of thing that rock musicians use all the time. Oops, sorry. So I can show you a little bit about how that can change things. So that was just a rough idea. Well, I'll just play the harmonics section again. See, it's quite a different sound. Then I hit this button, then I'll get something else. Much more of a grunge sound. Then again, the harmonics are going to sound grungy. And I'll hit another one. Oh, that's.
Steve, do you have anything like a bird song patch or something like that, just to show that, you know, untoward things are available?
Running through. This is a flange sort of sound. If you don't know what a flange is, don't worry about it. So it totally distorts the harmonic series. It transforms it. Kind of weird.
Thank you, Stephen. It's very hard on the ears, and I don't know what the others' reaction is, but why would one want to do that to a Guqin?
I, on the other hand, see the potential uses of this thing, because we see the electrification of formerly acoustic instruments, namely things like the banjo and the guitar, has shaped so much of mid-late 20th century, especially American music, and it has shaped our modern aesthetics so much.
People have to like it. So
well, people grew to like the stuff, but on the other hand, while technology has shaped our aesthetics, people designed the technology. So I was wondering, while Americana has gone for a more industrial, grungy kind of look, has people gone the other way with a further electric or electronic music technology that seeks the other direction? So in other words, use electronic audio processing technology to go for the kind of timbre that us Guqin people would like. For example, rounder sounds like the Tong instruments. Have people gone the other way with electronic music or audio alteration technology? Have people even thought of that?
Actually, there has been a lot of research. There has been a lot of research by the computer music people. So and they don't use any instrument. It's all mathematics.
I haven't really answered.
I used to play theremin years ago and did recordings, and I've gone more to the direction of acoustic sounds myself.
There's a Chinese band I actually listen to. They're from Guangdong, I believe. But they actually use the electric guqin and erhu, and they actually combine traditional Chinese music also with like metal elements as well.
You're talking about the swamp, Zhaoze. I have written them into my book.
My band is Xiao Yin. Or in English, Mystic Rain, I think.
I see.
Who is speaking?
Oh, sorry, this is Yuki.
Thank you, Yuki. Well, there may be a wide divide if this trend continues, because of course we're used to electronic instruments and piano and other things. But as Jeannie was saying, all kinds of tastes, and the music will follow the direction of the taste, however popular or little popular it is.
It works both ways. People find uses with the strange and wonderful discoveries of technology, while we want to strive for a certain aesthetic and we create technologies out of it. So it goes both ways.
Well, my reaction to this question, the first time I was asked it, is the Guqin a museum piece, or is it a living instrument that could have some development potential? And that's not a question that I would say has a right or wrong answer. It's a matter of it's not a matter of truth or untruth. It's a matter of what your aesthetic is about it. And Marilyn might well say, why would I want to listen to that hideous sounding thing when I can listen to a traditional sound? That's perfectly fine. But if we have the possibility to expand the sound, to include different sorts of things into a different kind of music, should we feel constrained against exploring that? Or should we feel free to follow it a bit and see if we can find someplace? And I'm not talking about necessarily including it in a rock band. I think some of you have probably heard me play some of my music for Guqin and electronic sounds. And the kind of sounds I use from the Guqin are probably not particularly grungy or anything like that. They're just, it's a kind of, I find a sound that can work with electronics and doesn't sound totally weird being transferred through the audio system of the hall. In other words, it's most of the audio systems of the halls are designed to handle things like this. So it's, you know, as a composer, I can't not enjoy at least some of the pleasures of exploring this sort of thing. As a listener, I might say, ooh, maybe you don't want to go down that path with that sound too much further, you know, and I try to juggle those two positions, because I think we all are agreed that the importance of music is in the listener as much as in the player. But by and large, I think it's an interesting dialogue that we've started, and I think the more we talk about it, the more we're going to find new forms of expression, and also to appreciate the ancient modes of expression that were involved in. I mean, I love playing electric guitar. I also love playing the lute, and sometimes I'll play lute music on the electric guitar. It's lots of fun. But when I want to try and feel like what it was like to be a 16th century musician, then I'll stick to the lute with the gut strings.
Thank you, Stephen.
Very eloquent.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to our next speaker, Lawrence. Lawrence making silk string, and is our new friend. So welcome.
I'm not entirely new, being 70 years old, but I don't really have a presentation or any pictures to show. What I thought people might ask me some questions, but I'll start out by mentioning that I started out life as a creative person as a potter, and made my living that way for quite a few years. And then I had to make enough money to raise my family. So I started painting. And as a painter, I worked according to the direction of other people to a very large extent. I did commission paintings and put them in hotels all over the world. And then recently I retired, and I'm making silk strings according to the direction of what people need as much as anything. So first of all, I start out with the strings that I needed, and now I have people contacting me for the strings that they need. I didn't learn from a specific person so much as I've developed my style using the knowledge that I gained as a painter, as a potter, and learned about doing fabrics and spinning cotton and wool, and eventually silk. The silk strings are different in many ways from anything else, so I developed that myself. I've worked a little bit with information from Alex Raykov. He taught me a few things, and then I went off in my own direction. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. Is there anything that somebody would like to know?
Yes, what are the different instruments that you have made silk strings for?
Well, I started out.
I assume not just the guqin, is that correct?
Yes, actually the first instrument that I made strings for was a ukulele, and then I had a commission from somebody who was playing bass. You may recognize his name. It's Corneille Lecomte, and I did a bunch of bass strings for him. And then I purchased a guqin so that I could put my strings on there and learn about what makes them work for guqin. I do strings for double bass, viola da gamba, violin, viola, biwa, pipa, shamisen, and I do a lot of lute strings and some cello strings.
Do the owners of any of those come back for a second set?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
I have a lot of regular customers.
So these strings are replaced. I thought, I don't really know everything, but I thought a number of those instruments use gut strings traditionally, and silk is replacing gut, or how does that work?
Well, there's a lot of controversy about when silk strings were first used. I think when silk wasn't as available, then there was more strings made with gut. And then parts of the world that didn't have silk. Silk is actually tougher than gut. It seems to last longer for most people.
Can you share the sound recording of your
I have some
silk
sound
string?
recordings in SoundCloud. I actually have in front of me my Zhucheng. This is a series.
Cool.
Sounds very nice.
I haven't had a lot of people put silk strings on Zhucheng because the sound that most people are used to hearing with Zhucheng is metal nylon. But I have put them on harps. Tomoko Sugawara commissioned strings for two her harps, and she occasionally orders new strings.
A lot of silk string guys at this meeting. Guchins.
Yeah, that's good. My Guchin is over here by me. I just put on some strings that are a little bit thicker than what people normally use. I have on my first string, I've got a 2mm string, and it's very similar to that one. It's not really close enough to the microphone. But that's.
How long have you been making silk string?
I've been doing it for about a decade.
And what makes you want to do it?
Well, because I wanted to play Chinese instruments. And it's a lot easier for me to make my strings than to order them from China or Japan. I thought that it would be a good idea too, because there are people in this part of the world that need silk strings, so they might possibly buy them from me rather than importing them.
How did you find this silk?
I did a lot of searching for sources of silk, and 90% of the silk that you might find would be not suitable. But eventually, I found some silk in India that work pretty well. But currently, I have silk that's coming from Hangzhou, China, and I import that regularly. And that's the best silk I've come across yet.
So I'm not too familiar with silk screens. Is it? I read that you had to, when you first get them, soak them in egg yolk or something like that to like break them in. I'm not sure.
That is a hack or life hack for enforcing the glue on the wound silk.
It's not egg yolk, it's egg white, right?
Egg white.
It's white, not yolk. Not the yellow part.
Right.
The clear part.
Oh, okay.
As you
want
play silk strings, they get smoother and will wear a little bit, and you might want to put something on there to keep them from getting too fuzzy. I sell a couple of things to my customers that they put on there. One of the ingredients is baiji. It's an orchid, and it's actually a binder, and it extends the length of the life of the strings.
Did you just say that you found that the silk from Hangzhou is the best quality?
That's what I found so far.
Hmm.
I'm always looking for different sources. I communicate with people. Yeah, that's the best I've come up with so far.
Lawrence, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Didn't you try silk from India and did you not like it or something?
It wasn't as strong.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've used it to wrap strings. It makes a pretty good wrapping, but not as a core.
Yeah.
And you remember when I started out doing this, I didn't really know how to wrap strings. I had to learn how to do that.
Is that what the problem was?
Was the wrapping?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the question. I can only hear the answer. What was the question?
The question.
What was
Well,
the
he was
question?
asking me if that was the problem, was wrapping strings. Yeah.
So your wrapping is also in silk?
Yes, of course. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Have you ever thought of using like composite material, like aramid or something like that?
I've not. The feeling of silk is very different from any of the polyester material that I've messed with. I have included uh, a few other things, but silk is stronger than any other fiber. It really is.
Oh, okay. Because I heard of people using fishing line, like the very
Yeah.
strong fishing line. I don't know how strong that is.
There's different kinds of fishing line, and basically what you have with the metal nylon string is fishing line with some metal.
Oh, okay.
It's nylon. Nylon is basically nylon, although of late there's been some people talking about making sugar poly sugar based things, but it's really not any different when it comes down to it from something that you would get from oil. Sugar is basically the same thing.
May I ask how you tested the strength of the silk? By degrees as you wind the string thicker? And did you use any kind of comparison? I mean, for example, there's Mohs scale where the diamond is 10 and on downward. Is there a strength measurement for silk?
I originally would tense my strings with a scale,
Ah,
and I used a scale, but several years ago I kind of just dropped that because I got the feel for it without using the scale. But I don't really approach it so much, I guess, as a scientist as I do an artist. So there's a lot to do with the feel, just the way
thank you.
things
That
feel.
does answer my question, yes.
Hmm.
I have heard that silk is the strongest. Well, I'm not speaking as a scientist either, but as an art historian, where various types of materials are tested, and silk,
How about spider
tensile.
silk?
It's tensile strength.
Yeah, the tensile strength of silk is said to be, several times more than steel of the same diameter. That's what's said. I've never tested it. Spider silk has been used for strings. In fact, there's been quite a bit of study done with genetics and actually genetically enhancing goats to produce milk that contains the basic material that silk is made from. And so far, I haven't seen that on an industrial level, but that's something that's being looked at. There's also a kind of oyster that has a kind of material that they use to tie themselves to the rocks, and a fiber is made of that too. But it's very work intensive, I would say.
Fascinating. Is there any particular country that does this kind of experimentation? I mean, for example, the Japanese are superb at trying to control the results of whether a ballpoint pen does right. in industrial circumstances, etc. I just wondered how you have followed this up.
In terms of testing and proving.
Well, no, the different materials. You mentioned so many oyster shells and
Oh,
spiders.
I do a
Basically,
lot
she's
of
asking.
I do a lot of reading.
It's an international effort now. It's called material sciences.
Mhm.
When you make the strings, how many sets do you make at a time?
I will do primarily the sets that I actually have orders for. So if somebody orders a set of Guqian strings, I'll work primarily on those. And generally there's another order that comes up at about the same time, and it just seems to go on that way. It keeps me busy. Being retired, it's about as busy as I want to be. Wouldn't care to. I actually had people contact me that wanted, to have strings on their shelf, have some in reserve. But I worked on industrial level as an artist for 20 years, and working to somebody else's specification on an industrial level just doesn't interest me that much. The same thing for painting. I have people who own galleries that want me to do paintings, but that's not something I actually have the time to do anymore.
I have a question on strings in general, and maybe it would be more applicable to silk. I'm not sure. But so when I think of my Gucci, I like to, I guess, customize it when it comes to colors and everything like that to reflect my personality, which is why I bought one that was all like a pure black. So I was wondering, with silk strings, do you think if you dyed the silk or if you wrapped nylon in a special kind of material to where a person could customize the color of their strings, that it would affect the quality? Like if I wanted instead of white silk, if like I wanted to dye it red or something, would that affect them?
I think some natural dyes would be quite good for that. Traditionally, there are strings that are dyed yellow in Japan, and they use an herb that's used in making curry. I can't remember what that's. Does anybody remember what that's called? It's a yellow dye.
Turmeric. Do you mean
Turmeric,
turmeric?
yeah, turmeric.
Turmeric. That's it. Yeah, turmeric. I have, in fact, Tomoko wanted to dye certain strings a certain color to help her locate the string, visually. And so we did some experiments with permanent markers just on the surface of the string, and it doesn't seem to affect the sound at all. So
That would be good. Then you can color any color you want. That's very easy to do.
You could do rainbow strings.
Oh, you think you can buy them? Rainbow strings. I saw them many years ago on Taobao. You can buy. I don't know how good they are.
They're unfortunately nylon wrap metal.
I don't think there
Not
would
what?
be any problem at all
It's
with.
not silk ones? Oh, I don't know. I saw them.
Nylon comes in all sorts of colors, so I'm sure that's something that would be done on a commercial basis. My tendency has always wanted to go toward whiteness. The whiter the better, but as strings age, they do yellow and become a little bit softer looking.
And for metal nylon ones, they oddly turn green.
Well, that's the metal probably corroding on the inside. Yeah.
So Lawrence, do you have suggestion on how to maintain and maintain the silk for years after years using it?
I have a mixture with Baiji and several different kinds of oil, that you use very sparingly on the surface. I also have a type of glue that I put out. It's partly, let's say it's Baiji in a liquid form, and you could put that on strings that get frayed and get the silk to lay back down, and you don't even see the fraying anymore. Those are things that I fairly large extent, so I don't really want to give the ingredients, but you can use a light type of nut oil would be good. If you just have almond oil, use almond oil on gut strings as well. But in my store, I have two options. There's a liquid one that's in a pad and a tin, and a large part of that is Baiji.
Does anyone know what Baiji is?
Baiji is a herb that you can actually make a soup with it.
Mhm.
Qin Baizi is a soup that you make with a brain, and it just tastes really good. And it's
Can
good
you write
for
it
you.
in Chinese? Shunjie, can you write it in
Huh?
Chinese? Can you write it in
I
Chinese?
will send you yeah, here, somebody wrote this. This is Junie, right?
Thanks, Uni.
It's a hardy orchid. I actually
Yes, that's
grow
it.
it. I have
Like this
I
is a
have
standard recipe for kind of like a tonic.
I hope so.
It tastes really good, eh? Marilyn, you should try it. One set of
Lawrence,
brain, 5
question.
grams of qin gong, 5 grams of baizhi. You put it in a little double steaming casserole thing or directly in a ceramic thing, slow cooker. And maybe in 1 or 2 hours, it's ready. It's delicious.
I imagine
Lawrence?
it's good for your intestines. Yes.
You've been messing around with strings. Have you done any research regards to lacquering jobs with instruments?
I used to spray lacquer on an industrial level. Used to make frames. I never used the rushi. We use nitrocellulose was the kind of lacquer that we used for industrial purposes, and I won't use that anymore because the aromatic parts of that are really bad for your lungs, and it's taken
Jim,
me.
what are you waving around? What's this you have?
Oh, his.
What's that?
Oh, Baiji.
Oh.
Is it a pill form?
I think it's powder.
Wow.
Powder form?
Jim, you need to unmute yourself.
Jim, can you hold
Is
it up
it like
close?
sold as a drug like this?
Instead of waving it around, can you just hold it stationary?
No, I'm old, and I can't do that.
We can't see it too well.
So actually, I have a question for.
Can I say something first, Uni?
Yo, go ahead.
Okay. So this is a standard thing in terms of Chinese medicine. It's findable. It's usually used to help lung sort of respiratory problems.
Oh.
And you buy it in the US. I know Lawrence cultivates them, but Baiji is called a Chinese ground orchid. And they're relatively easy to get, and they usually, I mean, most of us can plant them in the backyard and they'll thrive. So it's actually a very common plant, but often these things are findable in Chinese medicine, areas. So that I just wanted to point that out. Sorry, Lawrence.
This is a tablet form.
No, it's a powder.
Oh, it's a powder. Well, how much do you put?
You can also get it in
I
dried,
bought
like
this
slices, almost like ginseng from a supermarket.
Yeah, you can do that. Because I mean, what you're basically, it's It's a tuber that goes to the ground like a daffodil or something like that, but it's not that big.
Yeah, if you live in the northern climates, you want to take it in the fall. It'll freeze.
I have a question though, Lawrence.
Okay.
If you live in Portland, it's hard to figure out if you live in a northern climate or not.
Good point. Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a
I live in a
difference.
humid climate. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I see you're wearing a nice warm hat there, so it must be a little chilly up there now.
Not today,
Oh,
but yeah, usually.
yeah, here
ow.
it's up to 70 again. It's been down in the 30s and 40s, but it's up to 70 today. I'm in Texas, by the way, in case. I've been here in Texas for, since I was 12.
There has been some discussion on the Facebook group with George Mung's instruments. It started off there about lacquers and affecting the timbre and the sustain of the instruments. So I was wondering if Jim and
Oh, I
Lawrence have any
some
expertise on that matter. How lacquering, or even the mortaring job, and the materials that are used for lacquer or mortar affect the performance of the instruments, given that all other factors like wood and its type or age affect the performance of the instrument.
Uni, why didn't you save that question for when it's my turn?
Okay, I will reiterate that later.
Okay.
Well, everything that I use as a finish now is primary shellac. I melt shellac into alcohol and use that as a finish. And I use a certain amount of shellac flakes that I actually dissolve in water. That is part of my glue mixture.
So what you're saying, Lawrence, is your strings are 100% insect.
That's right. That's it. It's true.
Interesting.
And a few other things that modify them. Yeah. Because melting shellac in water is kind of a magic trick.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I used up my time.
It's very interesting what Jim just added to your presentation, that we are indebted to insects. That was really, for me, very, very enlightening. Yeah.
I actually have a lot of respect for insects. Even in my garden, I don't use any toxic materials to control the insects. I plant things together that support the life of the plant. The plants are healthy, the insects don't do that much damage. Some years ago, as I grow yarrow, there's a 5-line beetle that used to really just devastate the flowers. And with some experimentation, got it to the point now that the flowers do quite well, and I don't have the 5-line beetles anymore.
Well, thank you. I attended a botanical meeting in which she spoke about pollinators and the fact that with so many varieties of bees that we're not aware of, the flowers and the bees are actually quite dedicated. I mean, only certain bees go to certain flowers, and only certain flowers are dedicated to servicing certain bees,
Mhm.
which I was completely unaware of. So you've added to my general ecological knowledge.
That's my intent. Yes. I'm very interested in growing plants. I grow quite a number of different plants. Some years ago, I started growing yarrow and actually sell the stems of yarrow for people to use for I Ching divination. And to a large extent, except for the Ukraine, I'm the biggest supplier of yarrow stalks.
Congratulations, another revelation.
There's a lot of little side things that I do besides strings, but it's mainly what I'm interested in that guides me now rather than what I have to do.
I think you could write a supplement, an additional volume to Needham's Science and Civilization, and you could entitle it to your own taste, and it would be extremely useful to be added to that compendia.
What specific compendium?
Joseph Needham's so-called
Oh,
Science and Civilization.
oh, yeah, indeed.
Which
I
still
receive monographs very regularly about silk from an organization. I can't remember what they're called, but I get monographs that are fairly dense reading, but I'll learn a few things occasionally from them too.
we don't want your knowledge to go with you. Please leave few traces behind. Thank you.
Okay. I have some grandchildren, and I have a grandchild who is also an artist in her own right, doing amazing things. She's just turned 13. And her little sister, who's just turned 4, those little peg games that they make that has a like use golf cues on them. She manipulates those things really well. So I have my eye on her as a person I will teach. Yeah,
Sounds
she's
like Michiko Uchida, who won the contest as a child for this repeating instrument. You know, when people come into a counting instrument,
Mhm.
she had the fastest fingers of her whole kindergarten class. So there you
the,
are.
the abacus or the sorbine, the Japanese abacus.
Well, she was talking about something else, but it requires the same
Dexterity.
dexterity. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just amazed at this child and her dexterity at her age. She focuses very well.
And you're right, it's not just finger dexterity, it's how fast the eye and the mind all coordinate together with the muscle, isn't it?
Indeed.
It's a kind of organic system.
Like I said, I started out using a scale to get the tension on my strings a specific way, but to a large degree now I just listen. I use an electric motor, and I listen to the way the electric motor sounds, and it tells me what the tension is. So it's very important in this kind of work to repeat things the same way and make very small changes
Mm.
as you go along. If you do something a certain way, you get the same results with the same materials. I keep an extensive diary of what exactly I've done with this set of strings, and I refer back to that to get the same kind of results. Uh, the number of threads for a specific size string. I'm really amazed myself sometimes because I'll set it all up and I'll spin the string and it's by golly it's down to 1/100th of a millimeter correct using the same materials.
Mm. It sounds like you are using the method that is hundreds of thousands of years old in terms of how craftsmanship becomes an artistic is honed to an artistic level and then is transmitted to an apprentice because very little of that is written down, is it not?
That's true.
Whether
Uh,
it's, yeah.
when I was a potter, I was taught by somebody to do some very specific things. And in fact, when I finished my bachelor's degree, I went to work with him mixing clay. And we made tons and tons of clay for quite a few years until I got to a point where I really needed to focus on making pottery. But I certainly learned a great deal about clay that way. Mhm.
Well, you sound
Okay.
fit in to the history of art or the history of craftsmanship in China and any other country that has an artistic tradition, starting from those flint chips, which are so beautifully made by all early cultures.
Napping.
It's touch and ear, sound, and so many of the senses are involved. Yet, anyway, thank you. I have a new respect for this form of craftsmanship, artistry.
I really appreciate your inviting me to talk about this today.
Thank you very much.
It's very
Lawrence.
interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting. I didn't know you were a potter before. This is very interesting because there's a kind of new 3D printing using clay. So if you're a specialist,
I've seen some of that. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Okay, Xuanjie, you'll be the next one, so you can continue.
Oh, okay. So if everybody does a 9, I would just quickly go through my paper. This way, everything's included without wasting time. So I'll be basically reading very quickly through my paper, and then if Peyo, you can put on the pictures as I go along. So I will start now. The title of my subject today is Naming Your Qin, Qin Making, Naming Your Qin. So I think when you make a qin, why would anybody make a qin? Because they want to make a qin, they have some feelings for it. So usually, maybe they should name it some special name to mark the occasion, I think. But I don't really know how other people name their qin. So that would be interesting to know how other people make. So this first picture we see is 3D printed, the embryo. I have not yet put on the carbon fiber, and this is the second tentative to make the carbon fiber guqin, because the first one was using a kind of molding method. So this one is printed. So I made the model in the virtual world and I had printed. But of course, I have to also finish by hand. But as I notice, as time goes on, there's a new kind of 3D printer that you can print it unlimited length. So I think it's better to reprint this using this new printer. But I don't have the new printer yet. I have to think about it first before I do that. So 1 second, I'll just move this. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so a qin is a creation. Somebody made it by hand. And currently mass-produced qin factories in China deploy robotic CNC machines to prepare qin embryos, which is true because I saw pictures of this hundreds of embryos that are standardized. It's just, using machine. So all qin players at the University of Tainan, University of the Arts must make a qin. This is so that they understand the process, conserve the traditional art of qin culture. Each person has their own qin, sometimes more than one. So sometimes they make 2, but because they are students and sometimes they can't really finish even one. And it takes them a very long time to do. Basically, it's because it's a laborious type of process. And, when students are in their 20s, they don't have time to do this kind of long and hard work. So it's a question of patience and all that. So which qin has the best sound? Of course, the one you made yourself. It's your child. So how do you choose the name for your child? Which propitious day for the sealing of the qin? Which lucky good date and good lucky hour? So this is often something that traditional qin makers are very careful about. So they mark the date when they seal the qin. So it's kind of like a ritual thing, which my teacher showed me. So he has his method of naming his qin, and each person has a way of naming. So he has his own way. So I follow all the ritualistic process of the traditional qin making at the studio of Master Yan Zhu Juan, head of the Chinese musical instrument workshop. So thanks to Master Shan, I learned the traditional proper way to do things from A to Z. So next, as I like to invent things, create original solutions, problem solving, elaborate ideas, add little breaks of the history of contemporary Chinese art and culture, and to bring the old to the new. I like to make chins with new components. I did some research on problem solving, things that I consider I would like, but currently is a problem to me. I faced some queries by Qin establishments, such as the following. Ancients never thought of carrying a wooden chin to the top of the mountain a problem. How come you think it's a problem? If you think it's a problem, that's because you're not a Qinren. So let's say they are Qinren and they are new Qinren, so on and so forth. So I wish that we could discuss about what is a Qinren, what is authenticity, all the connotations that's linked to the Qinren culture. So these important and interesting issues should be discussed in a very beautiful surrounding with good food and drinks and friends, etc. I think I like that, all of that. This would be an ideal condition for Qinren activities. So for now, vis-a-vis the creation of a carbon fiber chin, a Qinren is somebody who plays chin or interested in the chin, that's it. So what's important to me is the sound and the way it looks. If it looks good but not playable, that's not a chin. If it sounds good but somehow vulgar looking, then yes, it exists and plentiful on the market too, then we should do something about that. Pay more attention to lines, shapes, color, form, combinations, and all that. So it's not such a waste. I do some material research because of the weight issue of carrying a wooden chin around. I used a carbon fiber to reduce the weight by approximately half. So it's a 2.38 kilograms. See the one in the picture up there that I'm holding in my hand? As this is the first try, with further fine tunings, I would reduce the weight even more. So the second one should be even lighter, because then I would not be making redundant material on the chin. So, but then I also wanted to have good tonal qualities. So the kind of tones that I like are deep sounds, long sustains, deep and good volume. So there are antique chins with a single panel, only the top panel. But if you check the X-ray pictures of the single panel wood chin, you'll see that it's actually double layered. Master Tong Kin Woon of Hong Kong has presented his findings on a double layer top face chin. It's a Tong chin. So one of the ways to make a single panel chin is to have a removable bottom panel with a double layer top. So sometimes you don't need to carry the chin with a bottom panel. Use just the top face. So when you play, you place the chin on top of a good table, and if possible, with built-in sound box. For example, you can put it on top of a desk with an empty drawer underneath that's open. So with this idea in mind, I designed the second generation of the carbon fiber gu chin, named the Hu, in Chinese Qin Zhong Ren, meaning who is inside the chin. This is the picture is going too fast. Wait a minute. This one, let me see. Okay, I'll just go through the text and then we'll go back to the pictures. Okay. So this chin has openings and it's not hermetic. The master chin maker, Tian Shuangkun of Beijing, who's a student of Guanpinghu, he told me that the more airy the chin, the better the sound. So your chin should not be totally sealed. A hermetically sealed chin doesn't sound as good as a less hermetically sealed chin. So I made a virtual model and started printing the chin embryo in sections. So that's the first picture you see on the top, photo 1. Now I see there's a 3D printer that just came on the market. It could be printed unlimited Z-axis, and the price is affordable because they had this kind of printer a few years ago, but it was very expensive. And this makes me think carefully before I put more work into the one that you see in the picture, because maybe I'll just leave this one and print our new one that's continuous. So you can see from the link that I had sent out in the email, you can go through that and see more detail. So I wait a little bit to have also this new printer. Maybe there are some bugs, so I wait until it comes out for maybe another year. So if there are bugs, that they fix it first before I buy it. So meanwhile, whoever is interested in making simple wood chins, like the one created by Chen Changling up here, see this little white chin there, picture number 2, which is just a particle board that's used to be his computer desk or something. And he just cut it up a little plank and he just put on the string on this plank. But the sound of this chin is very, very tiny. It sounds a little bit like a mosquito, so it has no volume. But I don't have a picture of the underside. I didn't pick picture, but the underside he has also scooped out a little bit, so it looks a little bit like the standard chin. But it's mainly, I think, for symbolic reasons that he did that. And the sound is actually pretty good, but very, very tiny volume. So the reason he made this is that because he carries it around everywhere, so he can practice his fingering. And he gave me this chin, so I have it now. And it would be a very simple personal instrument. And in fact, he made these full-size ones in the same material at the beginning for children, because when children start to learn guqin, they don't really know whether they want to do it or not. And guqin is actually quite expensive. So he promotes these full-size single plank chins for children to begin. But maybe today the situation has changed and a lot of the parents, they don't need that. They just buy a chin right off. So this is like a fun beginner's chin. So anybody who wants to make a chin, if you don't know what to do, but just take a piece of wood like pine, anything, and then you can do according to the proportion. Actually, the chin is a very simple instrument. Anybody could make. So this, of course, you can also add pickup piezo or microphone to make the volume much higher. So here it is. The chins that I have made have original names because they mark a moment in time. So the first one is half hundun. The half hundun is first when I saw the hundun chin, which is just a shape. And so I thought, how about a half hundun? You just do half because we are not totally hundun. So because this is the first chin, so it's like things are starting to open up. So normally we have 4 eyes in the chin, the standard chin, but I just put 2. So one side is, one side has two eyes and the other side is straight. And I think that looks pretty good to me. So I decided on this shape. So the second one I made is called the large hand scroll. Here's a photo number 4. Oh no, yeah, number 5, photo number 5. Now this has a special story behind this because I like the banana leaf chin, and but everybody has a banana leaf chin. So if I'm gonna make my own chin, I must make something original. So, but I like curved forms, so I try to make some curved forms. And then this goes back to the, what happened? So here, the story behind this hand scroll chin is, which is this one, photo 5. It has curves, but they are not symmetrical curves. They are kind of off balance ones. I mean, kind of syncopated curves. So so the story is, I dreamt of a friend in real life. But I never, in real life, I don't know him. I've never really talked with him so much because he didn't really speak. He didn't really speak French or English. And he was very good in classical Chinese, which I'm not so great at. But I dreamt that he came to my house, sorry, and left me a roll of paper. And this kind of paper is an architect's onion skin paper, which is yellow and very, very thin. So a roll of this thin paper has a very long length. It's about 20 to 50 meters. And there was some writing on it. And it's written in red, and I can see through it a little bit. But I did not open the roll. And afterwards he left. So at night, I dreamt that this scroll had unraveled itself like a bolt of silk. It just fills up the whole room. And then on this paper were little fly head-sized words. It's in Chinese. It's handwritten in Chinese. So I tried to read it, but I opened my eyes and I woke myself up. So I decided to make this a hand scroll chin because of the way it just billowing in the room. And the waveforms are not symmetrical like the banana leaf shape. It's like a sheet of paper that unfolds on top and it's wavy. So it's a hyperbolic curve. So the shape is driven by the concept of unending rolling waves. So it's called a large hand scroll, the 大手卷. Here we go. This is photo 5. Let's see. So the third and fourth are part of an experimental work, the XYZ chins made at Master Shan's workshop, which was presented at Leiden University. This is photo 6, which is the Jing Ping Wen Qin, which is the Shou Shuan Qin at the Kyoto. Is it in Kyoto? I think it's it's a very famous Qin, this one.
Yes, Sha Luo Yan is one of those imperial-owned warehouses in Kyoto.
Yeah, oh yes. I have never seen the real thing because each time it's exhibited is in October, 2 weeks per year, something like this. But apparently this is a Qin that it was a gift from China to Japan. So, and there is, after I've seen this and I've done this, a few years later, I discover another Qin, but it has no decoration. It's exactly this form, and which was also very beautiful. But here I was very attracted by this inlaid type of decoration. And I was thinking, does it affect the sound if there's some inlaid, this kind of thing? So in fact, we could put inlaid with a contemporary design that reflects our life in it, if we want such a thing. But well, I didn't design the thing. And so this was a research that I wanted to do to do it by hand first, the traditional way, and then afterwards do it by 3D printing, just to see whether it is viable to make chins with the 3D printing. But as it turns out, the 3D printed chins are not, so far the material for printing is kind of dense. It is not quite the type of material that's good. But I think we could do some new material for filaments that for printing that's different, that for example that's has an inbuilt porousness, or after it's printed you can probably treat it somehow so there's lots of holes in it. I think that would be a very good thing, but that would take a lot of time. So this is a project that's ongoing that I'm thinking about. So I just temporarily named it Hua Gui, which is the number 1 is made of shanmu, and the number 2 is made of wutong, which is long yang. And So as you can see, picture 7, there are these two. So this is a traditional way. So I know how it's made, traditional. So coming down here is the carbon fiber. So this one, maybe we can listen to the clip of this carbon fiber qin. Peiyu, can you like click on the link so we can hear the sound of the carbon fiber qin? So the qin, we tested the qin in 2016, and thanks to Peiyo, she played some tunes with, and also we tested different kinds of strings on it. Because I have learned to play many times, but I forget very quickly what I have learned. So it took me a while before I could really do a demo myself. So I bring my qin to different people and have them test my qin and give me some feedback. What do they think of the qin, etc. And this qin was presented in Beijing conference, of a Guqin conference, and then a lot of people came up and played with it, even though it was not quite ready. The first person who played on it was Professor Jiao Zhazhen. So I have also a video of the presentation in Beijing, but it's stocked somewhere. So anyway, so it was quite interesting. And Chen Changling had wanted to use his qin to do the Yaji, but then it was not quite ready. It was not dried in time because I had very little time to do it. And
my internet is really lousy today. So
yeah, mine is too.
Sorry
Mine is
about
as unstable. I have unstable connection. So I will go next. But I think you can go on YouTube and Google carbon fiber Guqin, and then you can like independently. It's maybe much smoother because we are trying to use the bandwidth. Maybe because of that, it's kind of struggling.
Yeah.
Oh.
Let me just
Okay.
paste the link here in the conversation room.
Oh yes, okay. It's also on YouTube. So depending on whether because I tested it this morning on Vimeo, they ask you to log in, but on YouTube they don't ask you to log in, so you can see. So that's the hand scroll qin. This is the XYZ qin. the carbon fiber chin. And then, so here on photo number, what photo is it? The one after the carbon fiber chin. I've taken the carbon fiber chin to, a park here. And then one other thing about the carbon fiber is that it does not get affected by humidity. I talked to some teachers at Zhucheng, and they were saying they had a really huge concert for the Olympics or something. They had like 200 people with their very expensive chin, and then it was raining. They really worry about their chin being wrecked. So actually, for playing outdoors, I think it would be very good to have a carbon fiber chin. Nothing will happen to it. It's totally perfect. So here the Hu. So we are coming to the Hu chin. So this is the last one. This is the ongoing one, the 3D printed the Hu. So the Hu, how come it's called the Hu? The Hu as in the question, who are you? Who is the little one playing? I think Qin music at its best is when you are letting your little one out to play. So I borrow a question from Alice in Wonderland. Who are you? How do you know you are you? So that's why this Qin is called the Hu. So this is the last one, which is what I'm working on right now, which is a carbon fiber Qin with a removable back panel. So that's the end of my presentation. If you have any question, if I go through things too fast, you please ask questions.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It was a caterpillar that said, "Who are you?" So that links it to silk strings, doesn't it?
Oh, yes.
Metamorphosis.
Oh, actually, I remember the story in Alice in Wonderland is that Alice, at some point, she forgot who she was, and she was thinking, am I still the person I am? Just to reassure herself, she started reciting the multiplication table and also the French words or something like this to make sure that she knew what she thought she knew. And because she knows these things, she's saying, oh yes, I must be who I think I am. So it was from
I feel like that all the time.
Yes, I think that's really interesting. How do you know you are you? Because you're always changing too, right? So I thought that's
a great
who's in the chin.
Raise your hand.
Pardon me?
Mambo, you raise your hand?
I
Yes,
did,
yes.
because I wanted to ask a question, so I wanted to put myself in the queue.
Hi, yes.
Hello, everyone, by the way, and thank you for your presentation. That was lovely. And I wanted to ask you, I think I heard you say two things. One is that the students in the Conservatory of Music studying Wuqin also have to build their own chin.
Yes.
And although they are under the
Hello,
guidance...
I cannot hear the question. Maybe the internet not good. So could you go slowly so there's not so much second...
Sure. Yeah, so I was asking, I think I heard you say that the students in the Conservatory of Music, they have to build a guqin.
Yes, this happened. Yes.
I'd like, can I ask the question?
Yes, please.
Yes. So, but you said that they sometimes don't even finish building the first one because of the complexity of the process. But you also said that the guqin is a very easy instrument to build, that anybody could build. So I wanted to ask you, where is the...
Okay.
Where is the
when I say
spot in between those two?
I understand your question. Wow. For example, I showed a little wooden plank chin by Chen Changling, who's a very famous player. That is the making of a qin, right? It's a very simple thing in one piece of wood, and as long as you get all your the markings right, you could actually play it, and it is a qin. But if you want to make a like a, let's say, formal a qin that is recognized as a proper instrument, so to speak, that's something else, right? Like we can all make a little guitar ourselves, but if you want to make a guitar that really is like an acoustic guitar of a certain this and that, then you have different requirements. But the ones made by the students were like I was learning alongside with the students. So actually, the teacher really wants to have the student wanting so that they know how it's made, because the section is called Chinese instrument making. So they don't only make guqin, they make also pipa, guzheng, anything you want to make, the teacher can teach you erhu, all this. And there are different processes that, for example, if you have some erhu, for example, there would be a snake skin. There's a certain way to soak it and stretch it, and So I think the guqin is not like a violin, which they also have a section that they make violins, but a guqin is simple in the sense that actually something quite to me, it's a massive piece of wood that's been sculpted to have a good acoustic properties, right? Now, between somebody who can really make a very good qin and somebody who can make something that's playable, there is a big difference, right? And this has to do with training your ear to listen to the resonance and the quality of the wood and the thickness of the wood. Let's say if at some point your qin is a little bit dead at a certain point, you would have to know where to cut out the wood. Or if it sounds not so good, you have to add back something. And so this kind of adjustment to arrive at a kind of as good as you can do it, it takes skill and also knowledge and sensitivity and all that. And all this is very slow and long. And students are 20 years old, they want to go to the movies. They want to go eat at the night market. They don't want to sit there and have to like sand the stuff down. It is hard and it is just sweaty and it's just no fun, right? So that's why they cannot finish often. Sometimes it takes 2 years and they don't finish. I see some abandon the qin, So that's the reality, because it is a handiwork. It's kind of like a hands-on old style work. And people might like to play the qin, but not everybody likes to have to do all this hard hand work, right? So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
That is one of the reasons. I think if you have a 3D printed qin, so that removes some of this laborious wood grinding thing. If you can get this good enough acoustic property from the material, from the shape that you design, from every aspect. So it's up to the person to design and test and all that.
Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, Xuanjie. So we have to move on now, okay? So thank you very much, Xuanjie. And if you have any question for her, please, if you have any question for her, you can leave it in the discussion room. And now let's welcome our guest, Charles from London Yolan Qin Society, who is going to play some Qin music for us. And
yes, hello, Pei.
Followed by Charles will be Jim.
Okay, yes. So I suppose I should introduce myself formally. So my name's Charles Choi. I live in Birmingham, UK, and I've been playing Qin for around 20 years or so. Roughly around the time of the London Yolan Qin Society's founding, and then I joined them soon after the founding. And I've been with them since, and now I'm on the committee. But yeah, so the piece I'm playing, and also the chin I'm playing on, also follows on the theme of chin making, because this chin is made by Zhucheng Wei, who's my teacher, and also who's a famous chin maker as well. So it's appropriate that I play on one of his chins. And the piece I'm going to play is called Qiu Shui, or Autumn Floods, which is also what he taught me as well. So I suppose I'll best crack on with it.
Amazing how we've got the same teacher and we play
Yes.
so differently now.
Yeah.
So this is from 天闻阁琴谱, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Charles. That's a beautiful performance. And so the next speaker is Jim. Jim, whose kids is talking behind the background? Okay, so Jim.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You have, I'm seeing Charles as the main thing at the moment. Okay, there we go. I'd like to apologize because I had two cameras, but one of them just broke. So we're stuck with my laptop. And that will mean I can wave my hand and I can show you things for what it's worth. Maybe. I'm doing the wrong thing. I have to figure this out. So this also, all right, so then I made my apology. If you want to hear the Qin I've made, I sent an email out with 4 recordings of different Qin, and please listen to that. I recommend that you be careful with the volume because I always record as maximum loud because it's a Gu Qin, and I expect people to turn the volume to where they want it to be. So I just want to make that little caveat. Now, as for myself, you sort of set me up as a traditional Qin maker, and I'm not sure how true that is. Unless you say crazy traditional Qin maker, that would be okay. I could accept that, Peo. But I just mean, because I am, at some point, I decided that me making black Gu Qin that looked like they were from China or something like that, I wouldn't have done that anyway. I would have made a Qin that looked like a Zhucheng Wei Qin. And since you just saw Charlie's Zhucheng Wei Qin, that is basically my model, except I just have straight lines on the sides. That's all. And there's actually a reason for that, but never mind, it's not important. So I decided at some point that I was going, oh, I have a request. Can somebody interrupt me, say, in 15 to 20 minutes to tell me to shut up? So you guys can, so Uni can ask their question. Uni can ask her question, and if anybody else has any questions, they can ask questions too. I mean, that's fair. All I'm really doing is talking story and waving my hand, so you can see that. So anyway, I decided that me making traditional Qin, just like in China, wasn't terribly interested. And because I live in the Pacific Northwest, I really wanted to experiment with some of the local woods that are available to me. And then at some point, I had made a few traditional Qin, including using traditional lacquer and that sort of thing. And anyway, I studied, John Thompson and I in 1975 studied Qin making with Zhucheng in Taiwan. And we mostly focused, though, actually on lacquer work. So however Zhucheng taught us, which I don't remember, I can still do that. You know, it's just, so okay, so fine. So anyway, I decided that I wanted to start experimenting with finishes that were available in the US. And I've gotten burned several times in several ways by doing that. But I believe that trying to find something that's actually as hard as the Huitai, the lacquer cement plus lacquer, is indeed the crux of trying to do a finish that doesn't involve a urushiol-based plant sap, as it were. And so I've experimented with that, and I've had several. When we started with Japanese cashew lacquer, so-called, it became unobtainable at some point, so I haven't used that in over a decade, I think. But anyway, I want to talk about the woods first. And then I'll talk a little bit about the Yueshan, the bridge, and I want to talk about just some some thoughts I've had about the design therein of the yueshan, and I want to point out there's some variations. There's some very interesting questions there. I've actually learned a few things that I think are interesting and possibly important in terms of acoustics. But anyway, I want to talk about that. So with the woods I've tried, because of being in the Pacific Northwest, I acquired some Western red cedar that actually came from BC. And it was old growth. It was wonderful. I've made 3 out of 4 chin. I have 1 left. I hope to actually use that up at some point because it is old growth. And if you look at my videos, the red chin is an example of the Western, of the red cedar, okay? And that was probably the last time I ever used cashew lacquer to cover up something, to cover up the wood, because it actually made me kind of sick at my stomach to hide the grain of old growth. And I sort of made a vow that, well, okay, I'm a wacko on the West Coast. I might as well do my own thing in toto. So I decided to start trying with other kinds of clear finishes. I've also used spruce, which is probably from Alaska, but it could be from Oregon. It's very hard to tell. What's the third one? I've used paulownia because, ironically, when I was getting started making chin, someone named Stephen Dydo pointed out to me that I could buy paulownia in Portland. And I was so astonished after I got up off the floor, I went out and did it. So I still have some paulownia from that excursion. And the other thing is redwood, and when I say redwood, I'm not saying humu. I'm saying sequoia from California. So sequoia is an art form to obtain. You cannot get new sequoia. You can, if you're lucky, track down used redwood. And redwood and the acoustic properties of redwood, I love redwood. I love the way it sounds. And it's warm. It's warm in a way that is different from Western red cedar, which is, for what it's worth, is a cypress. If Steve was here, we could tell him that. So the other area of experimentation is catalpa is unobtainable in the U.S., relatively speaking. It is sold in a few places on the East Coast. I have some. I've never used it. And one of the things I sort of want to talk about, if we can get Uni's question in, is that polarities in acoustics between resonance and damping. Those are complete and total opposites. Resonance is about wood being activated in a truthfully a musical sense. So it sounds good. And acoustic physics at least has a way to measure that, even though finding the measurements is relatively esoteric. I had to use an acoustic physicist that I met to track some of that down. And it was quite interesting. So damping, on the other hand, means you're basically preventing the wood from moving. And there's 2 of that. By putting finish on the wood, that is an act of damping, as an example. Resonance choices are, if you chose plywood or you chose redwood, you would have a very different result, because redwood has a very, very high resonance, and plywood, of course, has a resonance that's effectively like this. Okay, there's sort of a little joke I've run into, which is if you think glass has incredibly high resonance, cardboard is the opposite. So that should be meaningful, I think, inherently. Imagine you're playing a cardboard chin. It probably wouldn't go very well. So anyway, the other thing I've done is try to use various woods, and this is harder to do because there's only so much time in one's life. But I've tried different bottom woods as combinations. And at this time, maple is my go-to. Maple has good acoustic properties. Maple does something that is kind of remarkable in that it improves when we play dyads, when we play xiaozuo or dazuo, the basically the separation of the notes is something that maple helps with. So at some point, I became interested in the question of just how do we get energy from the strings to, into the top. The traditional woods for guqin are shanmu and baitong or paotong, Polonia, however you call it, and then catalpa. Catalpa is an interesting wood choice. People don't ever talk about this very much, but catalpa is a wood that is effectively self-damped. It has low resonance. So why has it been chosen? I think the reasons are actually because catalpa is very traditional. If we get glimmerings from 2,000 years ago, and that sometimes those instruments were made totally out of catalpa. So I think there's a traditional aspect. The other aspect is catalpa is actually a very stable wood. And since, this is great. An irritating question that people have asked me, like it actually means anything, which I think it doesn't. It seems to be pissing me off even as I'm talking about it, is the question, how many guqin have you made, Jim? And I can't really answer that question because I don't know if I should include, when the time the Qin blew up, that never really happened to me. But I have made far more bottom boards than top boards. And the reason for that is if you're a guqin maker and you live in some place like, I don't know, Chengdu or Portland, you better have a humidity measuring device wherever, because high humidity can destroy a board overnight. Depends on the kind of wood. I've ended up with things like Padauk that looks like a, Shuengit's whatever, Huindun without actually having to do it, to carve it out that way. And other copious failures, but they're all that's just about not being careful enough with humidity and overnight. So the second thing I want to say is I want to just talk about the yueshan a little bit. And since I'm going to have to show this to you. So this is a Zhangcheng Wei Qin. And I would ask Charles, I hate to put you on the spot, Charlie, but do you notice there's something different about this Zhangcheng Wei Qin? Other than the fact that I actually heard it by wanting to see long ago when I got this Qin, I wanted to see exactly what he did on the side, so I scraped it off and never repaired it, but oh well. It's not that.
I can't really see.
Bridge structure. Is it throughout the entire head of the instrument?
No, it's the yueshan. What's different about the yueshan?
It goes right to the bottom board.
You're using a different wood for the yueshan.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
Isn't that traditional?
Okay.
Charles, you're right about that, and that's important. But in any case, when I got this Qin, so I'm going to talk story for just a second. When I got this Qin, it was terrible, and I felt cheated. And I didn't know why, but the example was I tried silk strings on it. String one would not, if you had any kind of music measurement thing that would tell you what note you were playing, string one, you couldn't even get a coherent note on it. It was so bad with silk strings. It would play with nylon metal strings, but it sucked. So anyway, at some point later on, after a few years, when I had taken the strings off for some reason, the yueshan basically fell out on the floor. And I picked it up and looked at it. And eventually this yueshan became because it turned out that in the yueshan slot, there was about a 5mm piece of wood that was also not glued in, that was on top of the bottom. So effectively, the yueshan had, in some weird way, for some reason, was two pieces. So the first thing I did to this Qin was I made a new yuan for it out of rosewood. I'm not sure this is it, but it could be. Good enough, close enough. So anyway, when I did that, the sound became coherent. It still wasn't great with silk strings, but at least string one was now playable. And more recently, because I discovered at some point by simple sort of binary swapping that Huenge, which is an African hardwood, produces a really good sound. And it's better, and this was just a strict, make 2 yuan, one out of Indian rosewood, one out of Huenge. And it turned out that Huenge was like, I can't tell you quantification, I can't quantify it, but it was demonstrably better. So this Qin has ended up with a very tall yuan, but it's not the tallest yuan in the history of the world. Now, if you think about yuan and you look at them at various different Qin, what you see, let me just try to do this if I can. Okay. So can you see the yuan from this angle, more or less?
Loud and clear.
You've inserted it rather than having it float on the top.
Yeah.
Isn't that the norm?
That's a known variation. So I wanted to talk about the variations that you see. One is you'll see basically a yuan that is cut back and doesn't go out all the way to the edge. Sometimes you'll see one that for some reason is cut back here, but it's still inserted at the edge. And then there's the form of it goes all the way out to the sides. When we think about the acoustics of this, when we pluck a string, energy is being transmitted to the yuan. It's actually wiggling this way. It's actually wiggling in all dimensions, but the pre-wiggling it can do is, like this, it's going to be significant in terms of music. And it's sending out waves into the wood of both top and bottom. There's a big question, which mostly traditionally for Guqin is, there's no there acoustically with catalpa. So what that's telling you is you're mostly hearing Polonia, if you're hearing a Polonia catalpa traditional Guqin. And we're probably pretty used to that sound when it gets down to it. There are other variations. And there's also the question of how far down should it go. So I'm going to tell you my deep, dark secret because it doesn't matter. But at some point, as an experiment, I decided that I would take the Chenglu and basically make it part of the yuan apparatus. So my Chenglu is a piece of hardwood right here, not an inlay that is very thin. And that's simply for string path reasons to get, the run ko to go down from here. But so what I basically did was let's just basically make this into a fulcrum, glue those things together, glue them to the bottom board. I don't know, that's what I'm doing. And I've pretty much ended up married to that particular acoustic experiment. I have a feeling that, and I could be wrong, that when we, there's been this question like John Thompson, who didn't show up, we'll go back to me. John Thompson has said, well, there's silk string Qin and there's nylon metal Qin or something like that. And I've known from sometimes brutal experience, because I'm Catholic about strings, and I have a problem with myself with silk strings, which is my left thumbnail just goes to hell in about half an hour. But in any case, I tend to think that this question has to do to some extent with weight. And you need to understand that most of the energy from when you pluck a string going into the yuan is effectively lost. We know that. So like 90% of the energy is lost. And anything you can do to improve the acoustic coupling on the yuan is worthwhile. A simple thing that anyone could try would be to try different materials and see if there are differences. And I know this is a fact because there are high resonance woods like Polonia. Polonia is a high resonance wood, Wenge is a high resonance wood, but it's very heavy. That's why I caution people if they say density is a factor, and they say density, it is a factor, but it's not as important as you think it is. We can have dense woods that are very resonant. We can have dense woods that are just total crap in terms of resonance. So, you know, this is your mileage may vary kind of thing. Okay, so anyway, one of the things I've learned, Peyo asked this question that I think is interesting, and I wish it had a simple answer, but it doesn't. The question is if you look at something like this, Peyo's question, I believe, I'm not misquoting her, was how high can the yueshan be? And the answer is it's not, you can't make it higher, you can make it deeper. And that's you know, you pay your money and you take your choice kind of thing. So if it's deeper, one of the things that's going to happen is it's going to basically mean.
Actually, I have made a yueshan out of a transparent acrylic material because for the look, but the sound is not good.
Well, fine, but okay. Try making it out of maple next and let me know how that goes. So maple is a wood that actually would be something to do an experiment with. It might be great. But in any case, now I'm off. What did I want to say? Okay, so the thing is, when you look at the luthier as a guqin maker at the yueshan, this thing, you have a question of how much is going to go in, how far down is it going to go? And I believe I have learned an important thing, which is the height overall is the real question, and it seems to have an effect on the quality of the harmonics. So I think higher is better in terms of the harmonics. Now, what I was going to say before is you have a certain amount of the chin that's embedded in the wood. There's a certain amount of the chin, say up to about right there, that represents the descent from the shoulder to the yueshan, which is on the order of, say, 7 to 9 millimeters. Okay, and then you have this thing, maybe 14 millimeters. That's what it is on Zhucheng Wei chin, more or less. That's above that. And another thing I've learned is you do have to have wiggle room. So I want to just show you for a minute, and then maybe we can open it up for questions.
Yeah, isn't the deeper that it's inset into the body of the top board mean that there's less vibration? You just told us that it vibrates forward and back.
No, we don't. You could be right. We don't know that. And I actually I would bet on the other direction, because I think it actually depends on the yueshan wood too, and I think that's important. But I'm about to talk about a screw up, although this is an interesting chin. You know, failures are just as interesting as successes. So, I don't know. This is, Shuengit wanted to call these things what? Double top chin? And I would call them a double sound chamber chin. There are guitars that are made this way. Whether or not this has anything to do with the Tang Dynasty chin that Tang Kinwen was talking about, who knows? But what I decided to do was because I had a spruce board that actually wasn't thick enough. So I decided to take a piece of scrap paulownia, and I made the spruce. The red is a trick. I made that to look like it's actually an inlay, but it's not. It's just painted. That's the paulownia. And so there's a sound cavity between the top and the middle, and again between the middle and the bottom, this is spruce, paulownia, and maple. And this chin has crazy resonance. Comes out of it is sort of surrounded with a aura because of that, and I think that has to do because there's an analog delay when you do something like this in the sound. There's the lower sound chamber is producing things slightly after the top sound chamber. So anyway, I just thought I would throw that in. And I don't know if you can see into the sound. Yeah, you can. You can see. See how there's two sound chambers? It was sort of based on Tonkin Lun's measurements, but oh well. The great thing about this Qin, the mistake. I talked about all that. I didn't mention the mistake. I never actually finishing the Qin here, but the mistake was, and Marilyn, this is opposite for your question. The mistake was when I made this, if you can see this part, this Qin probably has the highest yuan, or at least in the top 10 in terms of overall height in the world, because that there's two boards here. But the problem with it was that when I first made it, I used my conventional measurements for basically running this to here, about right there, actually, up a little bit, say 8 to 10 millimeters, something like that. And there simply was not enough wiggle room on the top. And I was so stumped for so long, and finally it occurred to me, well, I didn't know at that time that I should have said to myself, Marilyn's right. At least in the case of what I did here. And you're right simply because there wasn't enough here to wiggle. So I basically had to go back and decide. I think I took off about half of the wood for this part, maybe right there. And I never actually fixed the finish. So there's a mark. I don't know if you can even see it though. It's right, there's a line right here which bothers me. It's right there because of planing it down again from there. Okay, questions?
There's a basic architectural principle which you've just stated. It's how Chinese wooden timber frame buildings are built with the dogong and all of that. It's during earthquakes, they have sufficient wiggle room so they do not collapse. Whereas stiff brick built buildings will collapse because there's no wiggle room. I mean, that's just the most general principle that I can glean from what you said, because you've given us the information, a lot of information.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad I did that. So, Uni, time for your question.
Thank you. So the short is, have you done any research as to what materials for the mortar and what materials for the lacquer, now that we can differentiate the two and we have a lot of materials to play with thanks to modern science? What do those do to our sound and duration, sustain?
There's a lot of arguing about that in the guitar and violin worlds.
Yeah. So far, we've noticed that red instruments, namely ones made with real cinnabar, apparently have some sort of magical boost to its performance, in that its sustain can be up to like 150% longer than most other chins.
Really?
At least from my personal experience.
I would love to take one apart.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
There's so many factors, but I want to know if...
The thing is by definition, finishes fall into damping. And you have a question of how damped is it going to be versus how much energy is being transmitted into the material to cause it to move. So I'm just saying damping, a good chin, I read a paper at some point about conservation of lacquer objects in museums. And the problem is that with a traditional guqin, that's not a problem, it's the way it is. But you basically have a lacquer box on the outside and a wooden box on the inside. The lacquer box does not want to move. The wood always wants to move every day. Believe me, it is. So if you wonder where cracks come from, I just told you. That's where. One of the things, well, I don't know, never mind about that. I'm not here to be the chin doctor. So I'm very skeptical because I'm aware of how much argument has gone on in the classical guitar and violin worlds about finishes. And in that world, I think it might actually matter. Finishes have a tendency to stiffen boards. But when you consider that the thickness of, say, the top of a classical guitar is, I can't even do it. It's just, it's a few millimeters, say something like that, 2 to 3 millimeters, in that, less than 5, in that area. And that's as an acoustic coupled system, it's easy to move. So because of that, and because of putting a stiff lacquer on it, people are actually playing with the sound of it. But with the Guqin, what we end up having happen, I think, is, and actually it's become popular among some Guqin makers, that they might put up to 3 millimeters of huitai on it, which completely astonishes me because huitai is the enemy of resonance. So the reason for huitai, when it gets down to it, is some genius sometime decided we can make a musical instrument where the soundboard and the sound box is basically the same box, as opposed to the traditional, I'm going to run a fingerboard made out of a hardwood to a box. Think of a banjo or a guitar or a violin. And that's a very different approach, and huitai is what made that possible. Huitai, on the other hand, is something I can assure you came from the Chinese furniture industry or possibly pottery industry. And all of those things about like putting hemp is a way to hide defects. That's what it was designed, that was what it was for originally, that sort of thing. So there's also the thickness question. When Wang Geng was here years ago, he and I had some very interesting talks about this. And the top of a Guqin is probably going to be, it depends on the material, it's going to be from 1/2 inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch thick. That's crazy thick compared to almost all other musical instruments. So the Guqin is heavily damped on the day it's born because of the huitai and the thickness of the top board. Okay. And those sorts of things, probably, they definitely reduce the resonance of it. We know we have our tradition that instruments open up, and I do believe that that's true. I don't think that opening up in 6 months or a year, I don't think has much to do with the lacquer. For 100 years, I'm not going to know because I'm not going to be here. But if you happen to have a chin that is 100 years old, you're a very lucky person if it's playable and all of that sort of thing. That's a very different thing. God knows what's happened there. It'd be fascinating to know more about ancient chin and the acoustics therein, and I just don't know. I don't think I've really effectively answered your question, Uni, but I've done the best I can.
Thank you. So I guess this is something we would rather rely on the future and material sciences and law of experimentation to see what each factor can affect.
I'm going to wave my my zitherpin hammer here and say, yes, you're right. That's an excellent thought. I wish there was more of that. Do I have it? How much time do I have left for you?
Your time is already finished.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, I continue. I mean, in the future, in next year, we will continue the same subject, Yaji, so we can talk more. And so after this subject, we're going to have one music performance by Yan Yan from Canada. And then I will make announcement, some announcement. So Yan Yan.
Hi everyone. Nice to see you again. Actually, I'm so glad to listen to the lessons from our presentant, our speakers, and Actually, I have interest to visit Mr. Dydo's studio. I have some ash wood and some wood collected from Canada in our local area. We have very nice wood here. Also, I would like to try the silk string made by Lawrence. And I want to share a little bit about my mini studio for fix my Guqing. Actually, I just finished my Guqing like this. The surface not completely finished. I need to sand it more, but I still can play. So this is my materials I collected. This is the rough one. We call it the 鹿角霜. So this is very rough, but I need to blend it like this and choose the fine one like this. And then mixed with, I found this lacquer in Lee Valley, a local store. But this material is water-based. This one, very good one. I tried to use it. Yes.
May I make a suggestion?
You're talking about something?
Can you hear me?
You cannot hear me?
No, I can hear you. I just wanted to say I use that brand now.
Yes. Yeah. This one I tried several times to fix my Guqing mixed with 鹿角霜. So this one useful, right? And if you want color, I found this color. You can read it. Yeah, this color is very interesting. If you see is a red color, looked like a red color, but when you mix it with this lacquer, they change the color because like this, I paint. Yeah, this is you see the color difference, right? So used for Guqing, it could be different colors, right? So it's very interesting stuff. So I use the brush, the regular one, and paint more than 10 times. Which the layer I make more and let it be stable for a couple months or half a year, or even more, 1 more years, and sand it and then finish the surface again, right? So this is the glue, the animal glue. If you have anything need to fix, like in the middle, something, you can use this, or use, you can steam it, right? Put into the small bowl, put into hot water and boil it. You have a pot. So this in the pot and then the water and boil the water and make the melt. And you can use the needles and put into in the middle, right? So you can fix it, even the very tiny stuff. And after that, use this tool. You can move and tighten it. 4 about it or 6 make it fix stable. So it's easy to do because it's not easy to find people to help us to fix anything in North American.
What is that? What is this one? This big jar, the lacquer jar, the can. Yeah, water-based. So it's
acrylic.
So it's not a nature.
It's natural. It's from the liquor natural. It's from the tree. Yeah. So but
有毒吗？有毒吗？
没有毒。
No toxin.
But
So
you know,
you won't get.
In case when I make everything, I have the gloves on. So basically, we do not just touch it. We use brush, right? So use the brush.
Right.
When I use the sandy stuff, you can make it in small tours. You can put on this on, curl it, and sand it. And you can still use your fingering. Make very tiny stuff like this.
Right.
Just very, very tiny work to do like this. But if you do whole body, the surface whole body, you have to use some better sandy, but I prefer use hand tools, not use electricity one, because this
Just for fixing, right?
Yeah, because the surface is very sensitive, right? Very tiny, because the layer is so thin, and each time very, very thin, right? So you let it dry. This one, the lacquer.
Where can you get it?
From Lee Valley. You can check from website. They can deliver to your home. Yeah, it's a big store, but it's in Canada. I do not know in New York area, but a lot of carpenters work here. They are very experienced professionals, carpenters. They always use this store to buy materials. This one, the advantage is this: you can dry after you put the layer on. They can dry in couple of hours. Totally dry in half day. And after half day, you can put another layer on. So it is easy to do, right? But the original one, the lacquers from China, they are not water based, they are oil based. And they could not dry in 3 days, even 1 week. And you have to, it's a season sensitive. For example, in Nanjing, we have the season between June and July. Humidity is very high, the ratio is high, about 80 to 90%. So you have to wait until that time. The lacquers can be dry easier in this season. But after season, probably lasts a longer time to dry it. So
I thought that natural lacquer requires moist weather in order to dry.
That's what she's saying. She's saying only in high humidity time in Nanjing can she do the lacquer.
Yes. According to my teacher's experience, because for most of the Qin players in Nanjing, the best season to fix their Qin is in 梅雨季节. 梅雨季节 means just before Futian, very hot, dry days between June and July. Generally say start from June 20th to August, the beginning of the August. The best time is before July 20th. So this is only 1 month. But after put the layers on several times, easily to dry. So this is my experience from my teacher. So you can listen to one piece from me. So glad to share with you. I want to test the sound. I put the earphone under my my chin and let me know if it is okay.
No.
It's not good?
No sound yet.
No sound?
No sound.
Okay, I just use the regular one, okay?
That sounds good now, yeah.
Thank you.
Very special. Thank you, Yan Yan.
Yeah, this is a Zhucheng scholar version of平沙落雁. Yeah, hope you like it.
Yes, very special. A lot of vibrato. It's very powerful, and the sliding is also very powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
I wonder if those slides and the yinro is your style. You just named someone's your, I didn't hear that, your source, but I think that is your style. The yinro.
Yinro. Okay. Actually, Zhucheng Pai, Zhucheng school, they have pretty much yinro. Very special one. If you see like so you will see this from Guangling as well. Guangling like
Yes, but each player must like it in order to perpetuate it. You cannot just copy because it is from the school. You yourself have to like that. Yes, is that correct?
Yeah. You're right. But I'm not prefer all the piece of music use in now too much harder to play. It depends on what kind of piece of music it is. I love some literature. Their expressions like平沙落雁, they have some images in this music. Some parts like paragraphs, they describing the wild geese, peaceful, and in the leisure, like a walking on the beach, very relaxed. You can express in the leisure way, but some piece can make more noise because it's like a stoning and like shocked by some enemy, right? So you can see the picture from the piece of music. So this kind of we call it the pictures in your music. In your music, you describing a thing like landscaping, literary landscaping painting. So that is the literary music and literary arts combine in the arts and the expressions. And yeah, it's something like that in the mind. Yeah, you have always have the pictures. Yeah,
it has to be in the player's own mind. All I'm saying is that you've been playing for many years and you have had a chance to become very familiar with this music, but still it has to be thoroughly
internalized,
integrated into your system. It's not just, many new players may have this, but their imagination is not
it takes
strong.
time. Yeah, it takes time. First of all, the read and follow the notation book, right? The first step, and then you forget about the notation book after 10 years. The decades practice, and then you relax thoroughly when you play the piece of music. Actually, we call it a peaceful mind, and we call it 不靠谱，就是 you do not really play exactly according to the notation book anymore. It's kind of your own relaxation, right? We call it like meditation, right? Yeah.
So it's already become your own style.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
become
If you like your teacher teach me whatever their own style. Of course, the notation book is exact the same, but expressions like Liang Xiao Yin play in Shu scroll could be Qiu Shui style, and actually the original piece is probably the same. We do not have the music recording back to ancient time. I believe this piece before Ming Dynasty, they are very similar, right? The same piece of music, but Liang Xiao Yin start from here, right? So Qiu Shui is different, but you can see their body very similar, right? And the style is different. In Guangling school, Liang Xiao Yin is more like the flying dragon. You can see the scene very hyper, right? And the rhythm is faster, and you can feel that like a flying dragon, start from Mumu, start from lazy one, and when they stand up and it's jumping up and it's flying and it's in the sky, and the rhythm is just hyper and hyper. So this is different, right?
I believe George Meng has his hand raised.
Oh.
Yes. Hello. I'm George from Sydney, Australia. I just wanted to ask, I think you mentioned that you're from Nanjing.
Yeah.
And it's I found it interesting that you picked to play the Zhucheng style. So I'm wondering, is there a Zhucheng presence in Nanjing as well, or is that something that you learned elsewhere?
Yeah, Zhucheng's school, there are several origins from Zhucheng school in Nanjing. I learned from different teachers. The first teacher I learned from is Niu Zhenchun. His teacher named Wang Shenxiang. Wang Shenxiang's teacher is Wang Xingyuan from Shandong province, and he was invited to teach Guqin in Beijing University. So in 1920, I believe before 1920 to 1930, Cai Yuanpei is, at that time, is the headmaster in Beijing University, invited him to teach. He has several students. One of them is Wang Shenxiang, and he graduated from there and to be the officer in Nanjing Jiangling County, to be the mayor. And just before 1949, and Liu Zhenchun learned from him when he was about 14-year-old. And then after many years, I met Mr. Liu in 1990. So that is about a half century later. Luckily, I learned from him the Zhucheng school pieces music, including this piece, and Shuanghe Tingquan is a small piece, and other like Wan He Songfeng is probably many people do not heard about it, Wan He Songfeng, but it's a really long piece. I think longer than Liu Shui. It's pretty much hard pieces to play. And Qiujiang Yebo, and Dao Yi. So many pieces, a typical masterpiece from Zhucheng school. And another teacher named Mao Yi, his grandma learned from Zhan Chenqiu. Zhan Chenqiu is from Shandong province. He is the student of Wang Xingyuan as well. So Zhan Chenqiu at 1930s, I think one of the masters, Guqing masters in China, very famous. And after 1950s, 60s, he has the music recording from Beijing Guqing Institute. At that time, I think in 1950s, and he's still living there. Maybe he died in 1970s. And Mao Yi's grandma learned from him and taught his grandson. And unfortunately, I never see this grandma, and she's much older than when I met Mao Yi. She passed away already, but she left some piece of music over there. I still copy the Guqing music notes from Mao Yi, from her grandma, and I met a gentleman in Beijing during the Yaji in 1990 named Chen Yuecong. He learns Zhucheng master Zhang Youhe. This gentleman learned from Wang Xingyuan as well. And also I met somebody, Liu Jingsao. He learned from named Sun Shaotao, the student of Wang Yanqing. Wang Yanqing, we call him Wang Binglu. He taught Zhucheng school in Nanjing. At that time, we call it Zhongyang Daxue, or call it Jingling University. Jingling University is the in Nanjing is #1 university. They have later on, I think in 1912 to 1920s, we call it Jingling University. But after that is Zhongyang Daxue. It's like Zhongyang Daxue. I do not know the English translation. It's in Nanjing, Dongnan Daxue. We call this the beginning of Meian. Everybody heard about the Meian school. Actually, Meian start from Nanjing. Meian is a small building, we call it a house, in Dongnan Daxue nowadays. In 1921, Wang Yanqing died in this place. And his student, many students from this university, the graduates, they moved to other cities. For like probably you heard about somebody named from Taiwan and Hong Kong. They learn from him. And nowadays, he has many second generation students in Nanjing and some other areas. We call the Meian Pai. Actually, Wang Yanqing is Zhucheng school master. So I learned from my teacher, and I learned some notation books I found named Longyingguan Qingpu. It's a special one.
我没有听明白你的意思，请再说一遍好吗？
You know what? This book, I couldn't find it here. This book is from the photo, the camera took by Xie Xiaoping. Xi Xiaoping, he taught me Beijing.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our time is very short now.
Yeah. Okay.
So we can continue talk next time.
Okay.
Then yeah, it's been more than 3 hours, so we have to stop our meeting now. And thank you for everyone's presentation. And today is our final public event this year. So please continue check our website, www.newyorkqin.com for periodically for our future events. And I just want to make one announcement, which is our official website now is www.newyorkqin.com. The .org has been stolen by an unknown source. So just try to remember that our website is .com now. And so thank you everyone for your join today. If you have any, do you have any question, Marilyn?
Well, yes, I wondered if Zhu Yan at some point could write down the genealogy, because she knows these masters so well. And it's hard for us to know these names without seeing them written.
There's actually numerous books dedicated to genealogies of 17th through 20th century schools.
It's because she has named them. She's not a walking book. If something is from a book, that's one thing. But she has mentioned masters whom she has known. That's what I'm asking. Thank you.
Yan, did you hear that?
Yes, I heard. I try to key in. Okay.
Oh, you can email us. You don't have to do it now.
Yeah, I can send you email, and
Yes,
you share with
please.
everybody.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you very much.
You're
Because
welcome.
yeah, your talk was very interesting. So yeah, we would like to know more.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you everyone. Thank you Lawrence, Jim, and Charles, and Yuki. Thank you for still staying till the end, and everyone that come in to listen to our presenters talk.
Yeah, thanks,
And
Peo,
so-
as usual.
Thank you, Ralph. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay,
So
I'm
we're
going
going to.
Thank
we're
you,
going to
Ralph.
stop
And Peo.
Thank you, Peo.
Thank you.
stop recording. There we go.
So, just one question. I just heard when Yan was talking, there's a voice, like a machine voice, a woman's voice, say, I couldn't hear your talk. Is that a bug?
I just stopped the recording. Is that what you heard? There's an
No,
announcement.
I mean, before when Yan was talking.
But
I thought it was the computer.
Recording. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
recording.
I don't know what that was. Yeah, I did hear something
Somebody was
else.
speaking using the type to audio feature. So they
Oh,
were
really?
basically speaking using a type to audio feature.
Who did that?
I wonder.